So I've got quite a few viewers on my channel who are big Vijender Singh fans. I did a few videos on Vijender Singh as he was coming up through the ranks, and as a result I got quite a few people who watch the channel who are avid devotees to Mr. Singh. So I've had a few requests that have come through to discuss Vijender's recent fight against, and I'm afraid I'm going to murder this name, but I'll give it a go, Zulipikaer Maimaitali, who is a Chinese super middleweight, currently rated the 119th best super middleweight in the world by BoxRec. He came to the ring against Vijender Singh, 9 fights, 8 wins, and a single draw. The draw was in his second fight against a guy who was 3-0. You know, his resume wasn't terrible for a guy with 9 fights. He'd beaten someone who was 18-4, 5-2, 2-1, etc. But he was stepping up against Vijender Singh, who was 8-0, and he was obviously expected to lose against Vijender Singh, amateur standout and a guy with a far bigger profile. Now, if I'm honest, and I don't want to speak on behalf of UK fans, but what I would say is that Vijender Singh's profile has dipped extremely significantly since his last fights in 2016 against Kerry Hope and Francis Checker. Singh was relatively active in 2016. He fought 5 times, but this was his first fight in 2017 in August, and being completely honest, the vast majority of UK fans I doubt would have even known this fight was taking place. The inactivity has been massively to Singh's detriment, both in the ring and in terms of his profile outside the ring. And now at 31 years old, having only had 9 professional fights, it really is time for Vijender Singh to get moving and start fighting opponents of any note. BoxRec ranked Vijender Singh at 51 in the world, and I think that is perhaps a wake-up call that is needed to some of the Vijender Singh hardcore fans out there, because whilst you can't always base a fighter's rating on how BoxRec ranked them, realistically, we've got to say that the fact that he's only rated 51 gives you some idea of the level of opposition he's been facing, and the fact that he's still operating a very long way away from world title level. So I watched this fight against, we'll call him Zulipikaer, who's the Chinese super middleweight, and I've got to say I was unimpressed. And I was unimpressed in the strongest possible terms. Now, let me start by saying he has been inactive. You have to perhaps give him some allowance for that. There was perhaps some ring rust at play. There was just not the consistent flow that you'd expect from an active fighter. Nevertheless, a guy like Vijender Singh, if he is en route to the top, as many of his fan base believe he is, needs to be putting in far more convincing performances than this. I'll be honest and say I didn't score the fight. I didn't sit here with a pen and paper marking each round, so I don't have a strict opinion on who won, but let me be clear when I'm saying there is substantial debate amongst the hardcore boxing community as to whether Vijender Singh even won this fight. And having watched the fight on the small screen on my mobile phone this afternoon, I really do think that it was a fight that could have gone either way. It seemed to be a close matchup. From the first round, the problems were there from Vijender Singh. And for long-time viewers of my channel who watch my stuff and have seen me comment on Vijender Singh before, I've always pointed out a few potential areas of concern with his game, and those areas clearly haven't been worked on in his training camp whatsoever. Straight away, he starts pumping this terrible jab. You watch Vijender Singh's jab, it is one of the worst jabs you are likely to see for a guy who has as strong an amateur pedigree as Vijender Singh. He simply, I mean, I probably won't do it justice here, but it's a left-hand jab. He kind of just taps it out. It's like a paw. UK fans, you could compare it to the jab of a David Price. He just taps it out there. It's got no force on it. It's not keeping an opponent at bay. It's not even really a rangefinder. He just paws with it for the sake of it, and it really does nothing to deter his opponents, nothing to keep his opponents at range. It's a very weak, pointless punch. What's the worst though, what's even worse than that, is the inaccuracy with it. I mean, he just throws it out there out of habit. He's not even trying to hit his opponent with it. You know, if you watch this fight, there are 5, 6, 7 jabs in a row that are coming up short. You know, Vijender Singh's throwing this jab and it's missing his opponent. It's coming up short by 6 inches or a foot. It's creating the impression of extreme inaccuracy from Vijender Singh. It's a terrible, terrible habit. And the way he fights, the way he's an outside boxer whose big punch is the right cross, you know, he's got to get that jab working. He should be looking, if I was advising Vijender Singh, I'd be advising him to look at footage of Vladimir Klitschko. He has a not dissimilar style to a Vladimir Klitschko or a Kell Brook, but he's not utilising that jab. He's not finding his range with it. He's not keeping his opponents at bay with it. He's not committing to it, and it's a cause of real concern, Vijender Singh. He looks extremely stiff and robotic in there. He's very upright, his chin's up in the air. Several times in this fight you see Vijender Singh getting caught by the opponent with just short hooks you wouldn't really expect him to be caught with, sometimes flailing hooks as well. And for me, again, I've talked about the lack of a jab for an amateur standout, the lack of head movement, the lack of the ability to bend and dip is very concerning for me. His head is just sitting there in the air, stiff as you like this. There's no head movement, there's no bending and weaving. He's literally just standing there like this. So what happens? You've got a fighter who doesn't commit to the jab, and then once the opponent's able to come in on him, his chin is just up in the air like this. He's very stiff, very robotic, and it's a real problem. Yeah, a real problem. The opponent was looking to bring the pressure, was looking to put Vijender Singh on the back foot, and there was just no slickness going backwards whatsoever from Vijender Singh. You know, he really looked uncomfortable, he looked ungamely, he looked uncoordinated. For me, he's not a fighter who is a comfortable fighter fighting up close or fighting on the inside, and the opponent was getting the better of it on the inside. I actually would go as far as to say I think the opponent was robbed of a knockdown in round 3. If you re-watch that 3rd round, the opponent catches Vijender Singh with a short hook. Yet again, another example of what I'm talking about Vijender Singh's chin just being up in the air, hung out to dry, no movement, no, you know, he's just there waiting to get caught, and sure enough he gets caught. And if you watch the slow mo, for me he actually looks a bit buzzed. He looks like he's on slightly unsteady legs. Zulipikaer then runs in, catches him again, and Vijender Singh goes down. Now it's ruled a slip. The commentators are convinced it is a slip. I'm not so sure. I see Vijender Singh getting caught clean, going backwards, on slightly unsteady legs, then getting caught again and going down. I think it's a knockdown. And had that been a 10-8 round in Zulipikaer's favour, who knows? Who knows? Perhaps Vijender Singh would have actually lost this fight. You know, I think it's this is very concerning from Vijender Singh. I think he needs to get active. He needs to get active quickly, and he needs to stay active. He's 31 years old. There isn't really time to waste, and he's going to have to be very carefully matched for me, because certain styles out there are really going to be his absolute kryptonite. Let me be frank, I appreciate I'm going to be brutal. If Vijender Singh were to step in the ring with someone like a James DeGale, I don't see him lasting more than 2 or 3 rounds. Could he deal with a fighter who's as moving and as awkward and as slick and as slippery as James DeGale? I don't think so. He's so static, so robotic. His chin is just so up in the air. I think he's going to get iced. Could he deal with a guy like Chris Eubank Jr., who's going to be closing down the range, getting on his inside, hitting him to the body? You imagine that Eubank Jr. coming up the middle with that uppercut on Vijender Singh, who's just standing there so tall with his chin in the air. What about a guy like George Groves, a guy who's got a battering ram jab, a guy who's mega explosive, who's going to be offering huge amounts of lateral movement, huge amounts of angles, and sticking that jab in Vijender Singh's face? I don't think he's got the ability to deal with any of these guys with the performances that he's been showing in his last fights. And I actually think as he's even stepped up to this sort of level, he's potentially been found out. The writing's on the wall for Vijender Singh. I've always thought he was promising. He has certain attributes. He's got, you know, that amateur pedigree. He's got a decent right cross, but he's just not setting up his game the way he needs to for me. And right now, my suspicion is if it continues this way, the professional career is going to be a disappointment. I appreciate my comments to this video are not going to find me too many new fans amongst the Vijender Singh faithful. But I'm here to speak about boxing as I see it, and I'm afraid that's the case. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button, especially on this video, because I think there'll probably be enough people who hit the thumbs down. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please give me a follow on Twitter. My handle is @BoxingGossip. Many thanks for tuning in, guys.